We're very much entering a period of great competition in the action RPG space. Last Epoch has finally released from early access to fairly good critical and audience acclaim. They've got some pretty record-setting player numbers. They've got a fan base that's pretty damn thrilled about the game. And really, this ARPG renaissance is just kicking off. To check in with the big incumbent, well, things have been vaguely looking up for Diablo 4 based on the team's willingness to pivot based on feedback. Their initial launch of Season 3 was, not exactly fantastic, but they extremely quickly made some changes, and recently they actually said they'll be bringing forward their plans to do a PTR for feedback. That's especially in the upcoming inventory changes. So, that's good stuff. The PTR will certainly mean they'll step on less landmines, but there are still critics of the game, right? And some of those critics simply will not be swayed by anything that Blizzard produces. Many of them just feel that the Diablo that they want can't be made by that team, that the team maybe has a different vision for the game, and it's pretty much that. Now, some Diablo fans, they kind of know that. And in the past, there have been groups have decided they're going to take things into their own hands. And that is how we actually get 11th Hour Games, who were founded in 2017 because basically they could see the writing on the wall for Diablo 3. Essentially, this is Diablo fans deciding to go and make their own action RPG to cater to their needs. And not just those Diablo fans as well, because it turns out a lot of people were very keen to jump on to Last Epoch when it actually launched out of early access. Let's just do that story. So, they had a 2018 Kickstarter that grossed over $255,000, early access launch in 2019, and it's a global team that was founded, yes, by people who basically wanted to make something that catered to what they wanted out of ARPGs. And it's a game that's been in the top sellers on Steam since its launch, and that's in spite of, February being a month that was full of very, very strong competitive games. And when we take a look at the player counts, it's actually doing very well. It topped out as the 39th most played game on Steam ever. So you do see that spike, 264,000 player peak, which is pretty damn impressive. 24-hour peak a bit more recently being about 150k. You can see, though, those numbers will probably drop a little bit more. It will likely settle into whatever its healthy player base is. But certainly compared to many other ARPGs, that's a pretty good performance. But overall, what we see here is a really big success, and it's one that's fueled by a lot of things. Blizzard's marketing spend on Diablo 4 will have helped them so much. Think about, there's new names, new faces out there in the creator scene that have popped up in and around like Diablo Immortal, Diablo 4. We've got games like Last Epoch, Path of Exile 2, of course, and No Rest for the Wicked, which we'll be talking about later, all releasing in 2024. And that means that if you like ARPGs, chances are you can play a game that is actually tailored to exactly what you want. Just like today's sponsor is. It's War Thunder. Look, blowing shit up is damn fun, and you can play War Thunder today for free across PlayStation, PC, and Xbox with your crossplay. If you click that link in the video description, where for a limited time, if you're a new player or you just haven't played the game in 6 months, you'll get a massive bonus pack with vehicles, boosters, this real cool Eagle of Valor vehicle decorator, as well as 100,000 silver lions and 7 days of premium, along with more. And yes, that's across all platforms. Now, War Thunder itself is the most comprehensive vehicle combat game ever made. It is quite insane. Between tanks, planes, ships, and helicopters, you've got over 2,500 vehicles spanning 100 years of history. And for me, that's just so cool. I grew up in Band of Brothers, Saving Private Ryan, A Bridge Too Far, and the like. So yeah, this kind of ticks the box for me. War Thunder's got incredibly authentic graphics and sound, a lot of attention to detail that makes for an extremely immersive experience, and that extends to the gameplay, where the damage simulation in War Thunder is very intricate, and it's best explained by just showing you the damage x-ray. It feels so realistic, and it's so much more fun than just a big HP bar that you chip away at. And on that, they've got 3 game modes between arcade, realistic, and simulator, so if you want to get your flight stick and go full sim mode, you can do that. If you just want some fast-paced, action-driven gameplay, you can do that too. They've got over 70 million players. If you want to become one of them, use my link, and if you're new or haven't played in 6 months, you'll get that bonus pack with the boosters, premium, multiple vehicles, and 100,000 silver lions, all perfect to get you straight into the action. That's using my link below, and it's a time-limited offer, so if you're interested, be sure to check it out. Last Epoch. Their pitch is really, really simple. Basically, it's an action RPG that has been refined over the course of 5 years of early access to the point now where it has got an absolute wealth of content. And to just go through the top line there, 15 total classes, 120 skill trees, very plentiful item drops that are then enhanced by a crafting system that gives players complete control over their build at all times. That's a massive difference to D4. D4 launched having got quite a lot of things wrong in terms of itemization and buildcraft. They then had to fix things, but by the time that those things were fixed, a lot of people were already feeling super jaded about the experience. Whereas here, you've got years of early access refinement, right? I mean, yeah, it's not even a fair competition, honestly. Then it's got a trading system built into the narrative of the game that is potentially completely optional if you don't care about that. And on top of that, there's a fully featured campaign in their own setting, which is pretty heavy on time travel, which of course does allow for a bunch of really cool things. Then you've got the promises of scaling endgame with monoliths and empowered monoliths that are giving, of course, the best rewards. This is all quite a lot of stuff, and it's $35 to get all of that stuff. Of course, in Diablo 4, it launched at not being $35, and with its whole, early access for the digital deluxe edition thing that just put a, bad taste in everybody's mouth. Again, $35 here. I mean, you can see the immediate value math that anyone will be doing. The value proposition for Last Epoch is absolutely insane. And you might think like, okay, $35, really big game, how the hell can they do it? And I think the answer pretty much is, well, they're on their own power, right? They're on their own steam. The Diablo 4 team is a team within Blizzard Entertainment, within Activision Blizzard, within Microsoft, and they will have to be generating as much money as they can and throwing that, of course, into the big happy corporate pot. That's a very different situation to what we've got here, where we've got a team who exist to make this kind of game, and clearly for them, $35 is enough to fund their own development. And I suppose that's the point. They don't have to throw money back into that big old corporate pot. They don't have that expectation placed on them. The thing that they're going to need is finances that make them happy, them, the company and the team. That's just different to those far, far, far larger publicly traded companies. Anyway, the value maths here is completely insane. The value proposition is amazing. And again, how many games in and around the $30 to $40 mark that are quite AA, how many of them have we seen recently do absolutely amazingly on Steam to the tune of millions of copies sold? I think there is absolutely a lesson to be learned in that. It has not been all smooth sailing for the game. Let's talk about the things that have been a bit more choppy. Number one, they confirmed during early access that they would be adding a cash shop with cosmetics only for ongoing support of the game. Personally, I think that is an entirely reasonable thing to do. The game's $35. They're going to be doing ongoing support. We all understand they need to pay for that. The thing is, does it feel like they're taking the piss? And so far, from what I can tell, the answer there is no. There is then the launch itself, where they had pretty damn significant server issues. They essentially were taken back by the scale of the audience response here. Now, this is made better by something that's insane in modern gaming, and that is an offline mode. Now, the downside is the offline mode would lock players out of the game's trading system, so, I mean, that's not ideal, but kind of comes with the territory. The point basically is, though, there's an offline mode. That's just like a fundamentally good thing. But the reason why we're doing this video like a little bit later is we just wanted to see how things kind of stabilize after, after the launch. Going to user and critic responses then, things have actually done pretty great. They're at 76% total on Steam, 72% recent, which definitely could be better, but again, you got to take those launch problems into account. So there is that. As you move on, though, you do see the critics are overall quite positive. They've got a top critic average of 84% of critics recommending, people basically recognizing the quality of the game, but also saying it's not necessarily for everyone. As an example, I think this whole sort of for the fans, by the fans thing, well, that landed not great with PC Gamer's review, which was a 6 out of 10, a 60 out of 100, mostly because for them, they felt that the actual moment-to-moment gameplay was more about finding items interactions and raising a damage number to be higher rather than the actual activity of inflicting that damage. I suppose the kind of game feel side of things. But of course, for many people, they want a lot of that stuff to be good, to be serviceable, and what they really want to dive into is the build craft. And for a lot of people, that's absolutely what this game is completely nailing for them. And well, again, actually just going to PC Gamer, I think this headline from Fraser Brown actually just completely captures it. Last Epoch is everything I wish Diablo 4 was, and the first ARPG to drag me away from Path of Exile in over a decade. So even though somebody may give it a 6 out of 10, and maybe it's not a game that's super calibrated to say, like, my interests, you can tell that this is absolutely hitting its target audience pretty damn incredibly. And really, I think it's something Fraser captures pretty perfectly. What's really drawn me away from Path of Exile, however, is the build potential. I mean, PoE's got great build potential, so that's quite the praise. There's a smoothness to progression that mimics the more accessible tempo of Diablo, but when you dig into the nuts and bolts, there's just so much for theory crafters to play around with here. What we have then is the best of both worlds, a game where we can go into a dungeon and blow it the hell up with your favorite spells, rapidly becoming more and more powerful, but one where you also can spend an inordinate amount of time poring over stats and items as well as passive and active skills until you start to get a headache and just rip off an overpowered build from a much smarter theory crafter. That, I think, is perfectly encapsulating the strengths of this game to its audience. Now, of course, the other sort of side of that is this is all honed via early access. That's why that build craft can feel, so complex and full of possibility, but also like something that people can actually engage with. That is the sort of impressive thing that you only get by doing loads of early access. I mean, loads of internal playtesting. I think we would all say that Diablo 4, had it have had maybe 6 months of internal playtesting, or just, I don't know, a little bit longer, that it probably would have been able to dodge loads of the landmines that it just stumbled into. Of course, the other side of that is because of all the early access dev, it's an absolutely massive game. So yeah, $35 feels like an absolute steal. So overall, with the amount of content, the player freedom, how well honed the design is, you essentially see people just feeling like they are being respected. And I think that that's the main thing. Diablo 4, whenever it has problems, and has obvious problems, while also being full price, while also, making some of the stumbles that it did, while also having, $25 cosmetics and trying to get you to buy like $70 worth of platinum because you'll also get a horse. That just makes people not feel respected. So, even just look at this. Half the price of Diablo, more content, better systems, you get 100 stash tabs, free expansions, skill trees, not skill twigs, loot filters. I mean, even as something, as simple like a loot filter. Yeah, where's that launch of Diablo 4? Actual crafting, 3 end games before the game is out. I regret spending 200 plus hours on Diablo 4. And I think what that speaks to is the inherent weaknesses of AAA development at the scale of Diablo with a team size like the Diablo team, which I believe is like over 500 people. It might be 600. I think it's actually the largest team at Blizzard, larger than the Warcraft team. I at least heard at one point. But obviously, like with a team that large, how the hell do you get to be agile? Whereas this just seems like a team that is appropriately sized to the project, with a very clear mission, that's just able to go and do their work. Probably not dealing with, Blizzard news over the last few years. Let's just cut a long story short and leave it at that. Plus, it's an indie who are overtly ARPG fans, which, I think just means people will be more predisposed to give them the benefit of the doubt, to like them, right? To just think and feel favorably about them. And where this gets interesting to me, when you look at streaming figures in February, you can see the launch of Last Epoch. You can see how it directly follows on from the launch of Diablo 4 Season 3. So comparing the last 3 months for these games is fairly interesting, right? I mean, okay, January 2024, Last Epoch is fairly low, right, in all of its numbers, whereas Diablo is sitting there at about 3.65 million hours watched. February's a bit different though. We got 14.5 million for Last Epoch, and we've got 1.9 million for Diablo. I mean, even just looking at the peak viewers, the average viewers, Last Epoch's launch is 250,000. Diablo is below 100k for all of those. You look at the average viewership, Diablo is once again far, far, far smaller. I mean, even if you're going to go like a little post-launch, you can see say March 2024. And I know we're only really a few days into March, but you look at the average viewers, Diablo 4, 1,721, whereas Last Epoch is at 22.6k. I mean, that's kind of crazy. You would not think it would look like that. And I think what that does show though is this is one player base, and it's not just the players, it's the streamers. You can't play D4 and Last Epoch at the same time. So clearly Last Epoch is taking those Diablo players. I think it really is. And you can kind of look at like Path of Exile as a bit of a control here. It's, I mean, it's got smaller numbers than Last Epoch. I mean, obviously Last Epoch is the big new hot thing that's also had a launch, but yeah, like PoE is just getting more than Diablo 4. So you can really see that the competition is heating up here. And for Diablo 4, they've got no big content update until the Gauntlet stuff launched. So, I mean, we're kind of just seeing like what people are actually just grinding the shit of right now. I think the answer is it's Last Epoch, not Diablo. So ultimately, we see what players and streamers are doing. They're flocking to the newer things. With D4, I think they'll need to have a Season 4 that really does feel kind of gargantuan. Who knows? Maybe the whole, even-numbered seasons are good. Maybe that will come true again. What does Diablo care about? Does it want to go for the more sort of mass market audience who, they're interested in Diablo for more just like the experience of playing that game, finishing the story, dicking around for a bit, and then kind of being done? Is it about getting sort of $60, $70 from those people and then just something smaller for the live service? Or is Diablo's next expansion almost going to be trying to do a bit of a Reaper of Souls to the whole thing, like actually trying to truly reinvigorate the end game sort of design? Kind of hard to know. It's tricky though. The challenge of being a big incumbent franchise and that being made by a really big team is they lose agility and it's really hard to serve everybody equally. Whereas a smaller team can just go and make what they know a hell of a lot of people like. They can focus on that, and they don't feel like they've got to make those trade-offs for the more mass market. Because look, like you're maybe your average person on PSN who's just browsing about, if they were to see like a Last Epoch versus Diablo 4, maybe D4 would actually just be a better time for them, right? And to really focus in on that, well, take a look at their website. 11th Hour Games is an all-remote indie development studio currently working on Last Epoch, right? All-remote indie team. How much do you think Last Epoch costs to develop versus D4? Blizzard they have to offer people a lot of money because they're making games in California, the most expensive place on earth to make video games. Whereas if you're 11th Hour and you're all-remote, it doesn't have to be like that. So it is one of those things. If game development is just getting stupidly expensive because it's hyper-clustered in and around, that area, with a lot of maybe VC-backed companies, large publicly traded companies, I mean, the cost effectiveness. I don't exactly want to bring up current events, but let's just say the ability to make munitions, right, has been talked about, between, I suppose, the more, Europe and US. You can see I'm really trying to dodge all the different words the YouTube bots may, slap the video for. But basically the point is, right, some old Cold War dumb shells, made in the old style, that's a lot cheaper than the Americans going and making the best goddamn dumb shell that could possibly ever be made. And it costs an absolutely eye-watering, insane amount of money, even though the thing that's actually needed is a shell that goes into a thing and goes from there to there and goes boom. It's almost, what is it, like comparative advantage, I suppose? Yeah, I mean, maybe comparative advantage is what we could talk about here. But I suppose, I just think, if you were to give 11th Hour Games 100 grand, Blizzard 100 grand, I think Blizzard will probably make nothing with 100 grand. I think 11th Hour Games would actually be able to make something with 100 grand, right? Yeah, when you're a company like Blizzard, the numbers that you're dealing with are so wacky and insane. And I think that just warps everything in a way that's not exactly best for players. Anyway, that's my thoughts on that. I love seeing people who love games starting to make games and essentially saying, what is the game that my younger self would love to play that would be good if my younger self came across? I think that's like one of the most pure ways, I suppose, and great guiding principles when it comes to maybe what you want to do, the sorts of things you want to make. I wish him luck, and I suppose we'll be back next month with a little bit more of a look into No Rest for the Wicked. Again, thanks to War Thunder for supporting our team. You can play today on PC, PlayStation, and Xbox with my link. And again, if you're new or returning, you'll get a massive bonus pack across all platforms, including multiple premium vehicles and all the other goodies. And the bonus pack is available for a limited time. So that's it for the video. Be sure to check out War Thunder to support our team. With that said, thank you so much for watching today, and I'll see you next time.